So here's the latest on Houston Rockets superstar James Harden. So what we know is last week James Harden was in Atlanta, and I believe him and his close friend, Lil Baby, who was celebrating his birthday, I believe they traveled to Las Vegas and clubbed it up some more after clubbing it in Atlanta. Again, in celebration mode. Here's the thing. The season's about to kick off. As a matter of fact, the preseason's starting this Friday. Now, obviously, for a guy like James Harden, he doesn't need to be there for the preseason. He doesn't need to be there. But should he be there with a lot of new guys on that roster, a new starting point guard, two new bigs that could both potentially be starters for you? I would assume you would want your leader around, but again, under protocol with COVID, Harden's going to have to not only take a COVID test, but then quarantine for a few days before he can be around his Houston Rockets teammates at training camps, at facilities, all that nature. Apparently, James has been working out. You'd hope he's been working out on his own. But again, he's been doing his own thing, and Harden has made it clear to the Rockets over the last month that he would like to be traded to the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets never made a formal offer to the Rockets, so that's pretty much been a standstill. There has been new information that's reached us. What we now know is Harden has officially taken his COVID test. So he has taken his COVID test, and we are to assume his quarantine has begun. All right, now maybe he could avoid doing a longer quarantine if he's been taking tests while he's been away from that facility in Houston. But we know now Harden has officially taken his test and submitted that bad boy to the Rockets organization. So we are to assume that Harden is going to show up at some point in the near future. As a matter of fact, John Wall is on record of saying that Harden is going to come and he's going to be committed to the Rockets. Now, new first-time head coach Steven Silas, he didn't seem as optimistic as John Wall did. And I hate this for the brother. His first head coaching job, son of Paul Silas, the legendary coach, and he's got to deal with this. This seems like he is 2 years in, 2 years out. That's what this job looks like to me. But anywho, James Harden not only still wants to be traded, but apparently he's let the Houston Rockets know, according to Woj over there at ESPN and Zach Lowe, that if you can't get me to the Brooklyn Nets, I'll even play for the Philadelphia 76ers at this point in the game. Just please trade me. I do not want to stay in Houston right now. I'm not feeling the vibe. He's feel like what he's been able to accomplish in Houston is they've capped out. Right? Now, many people would argue the opposite of that. Many people would be like, yo, James, well, the Rockets did everything in their power, especially under Daryl Morey as your GM. They did everything to put a winner around you. This is a little different than guys like Anthony Davis and others who've won it out over the last few years. They felt like they didn't have enough within their organization, or injuries stopped some of their runs. In your situation, James, we gave you the help year in, year out. For the most part, not naming the one Chris Paul year, you just haven't been able to win with Chris, with Dwight, with Harden. And it looks like you don't even want to give it a go with John Wall. Clint Capella had all-star level talent in Houston. He was close to making a game or two. So there is a lot of people barking back at James like, yo, is it us or is it you, not the leader? And speaking of your leadership, I mean, you're in clubs as the season's about to get started. What kind of message are you sending to your team, especially when you got a guy like John Wall, who we know he can live in them clubs, all right? Now, to take this step, this story even further, what I just was told last night, and I did not know this, James Harden is currently being represented from an agent standpoint by his mother. Now, I don't want to sound any way disrespectful to James Harden's mother. I believe her name is Sonia, and I want to be respectful to the woman that I'm sure. As a matter of fact, I watched a couple feature stories on James Harden. She was the person. She was mom and dad for that household, and she helped get Harden to Arizona State, and he blossomed there, and he was a top 4 pick in the draft. So I'm not going to do anything disrespectful to James Harden's mother, but I have to be honest. From what I'm being told, she took over right after James and Rob Pelinka parted ways because Rob took the job as the Lakers GM. So he had to go, and now he's the VP, obviously. So James has been represented by his mother for a couple years. And respectfully to this woman, James Harden is a $300 million business. I do not believe this is the time for somebody worth that amount of money could be represented by someone who has minimal, at best, experience in this business. Look, if James Harden's a guy who's borderline an NBA player, borderline not, I've seen that happen a lot of times where people are represented by their father or their mother. I've seen that one happen. But James Harden is top-tier NBA-level talent, one of the 6, 7 for sure superstars. This dude is leading the league in scoring every year, damn near at this point in his career. He can't be managed by his mother. He cannot be represented by his mother. He can't be represented by his father or a close family. He cannot be represented by someone who doesn't have elite experience at this point. I mean, this dude's a fashion guy. The brand is entirely too valuable right now. Because what I'm looking at is a guy who's not thinking through thoroughly the decisions that he's making. That's what I see right now. The way he's went about demanding a trade out of Houston, it's not ideal. This is not what Anthony Davis did a year or so ago. This is a little different. Now, I use him as an example. This is not what Paul George did even. And Paul George, it seems like, had some type of handshake agreement with the Thunder under the table if they were not able to get this thing right in a year or two, right? And the Thunder, they moved him. They moved him right to the Clippers, right? So I'm looking at what Harden is doing is a little different. You got an organization that feels as though they've given Harden everything that he's asked for. They've tried it with multiple different guys with all-star level talent. Guys have been perennial all-stars in this league, and now they're doing it again with John Wall, and you just want to leave? If I'm a team like Philly, like Brooklyn, let me ask you a question. Why would I invest in a trade for John Wall? He's got 2 or 3 years left on his deal. We'll just say 2 because he's got a player option on the 3rd. And if he's in Houston, obviously that ain't going to count because he's going to opt out. So let's just say 2 years left on his deal. He's got a PO on the 3rd. If I'm a team thinking about trading Ben Simmons, thinking about trading Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, some of that depth that Brooklyn's got, or any other team out there, if James Harden is forcing himself out of Houston, why am I not to assume that he won't do the same thing with my team? This is different from other guys that have opted out that felt like they were not presented with good teams around them. Give you an example in the NFL really, really quickly. If Aaron Rodgers wants out tomorrow from Green Bay, I think it's a total different conversation because he has clearly not been given the necessary talent it takes to win consistently in this league, in the NFL. And from an NBA perspective, there are guys who I believe have valuable, legit gripes and complaints of not getting talent that they need to win. I don't think that's been James Harden's situation. If I'm a team out there, if we just watch an organization do what all they can to keep this guy, why would I deal with this guy? An incredible talent, but he seems to be doing his own thing right now with his mama representing him. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Why would I trade for that? Why would I do that to my franchise? Why? I'm asking the question. Why would somebody go out of their way to trade for James Harden? This is not a guy with 1 year left on his deal. If James had 1 year left on his deal, conversation is different because at that point, Houston would be in a position to lose him for nothing. And owners all around the league, if you cannot keep a guy under contract who's got multiple years left on his deal, if you cannot keep that gentleman under contract, you got issues. If 2 years won't do it, if 3 years won't do it, what can an organization do to protect themselves? They're paying somebody all this money. This dude is about to make close to $48 million a year. And he's demanding a trade out from an organization that seemingly did all they can to try to get him and that team a championship. I don't know about this one. I just would be reluctant to trade James Harden if I were Houston. And I would also be reluctant if I'm a team considering his services to bring him in. Because I'm looking at what he's doing right now. He's not handling this the right way right now. And I think handling it the right way comes with good representation. And I'm not saying anything about this man's mother, but I'm just saying you need a professional at this spot, not somebody who's learning on the job. The job has a $300 million asset with it, though.